public hearing is about Eskom's retail tariff restructuring plan. And we are giving the members of the public and the interested parties an opportunity to present or make oral presentations on facts and evidence that they would like to provide to the energy regulator before we take a decision on this matter that is before us. The hearing today was duly advertised in the national independent newspapers, including Sunday Times, Business Day, the Bild, as well as NERSA social media platforms. And it was also published on the NERSA website. And that this hearing is held in accordance with the Energy Regulator Act, in which affected parties are given an opportunity to submit their views and present relevant facts and evidence to the energy regulator to assist the energy regulator to come to a well-informed decision. I would like now to summarize to the members of the public the rules on public hearings, on NERSA public hearings. This hearing is governed by the rules that were approved by the National Energy Regulator, and I would like to summarize those rules as follows. All parties will be required to make their presentations under oath. The presenters are allocated 10 minutes each to present, except for the applicant, which is Eskom in this case, as we would like to get more details and clarification from the applicant. But if there is a presenter that would like additional time, please inform us so that we can decide as a panel how much time we can add in order to accommodate you. Only the members of the panel may ask questions to the presenters. However, members of the public may give or email the questions to this email address, publichearings@nersa.org.za, and they may also copy patience.maswanganye@nersa.org.za. The panel will then look at the questions that were sent by the members of the public and decide how to put those questions to the presenters. Should presenters wish to present information that they consider to be confidential, please inform the chairperson so that we can then decide as the members of the panel whether to continue to hear that information that is confidential. In that case, we may need to clear the platform so that we can only have the members of the panel, the parties that own that confidential information, as well as the NERSA staff, so that we can continue to hear the information. The audio recording of this hearing, which is recorded by the microphones, will be the official record of today's meeting. May I then request that you please make sure that your cell phones are muted at this point in time, and also please make sure that you don't activate your mics unless you are given an opportunity to speak, and that will be in regard of the presenters. For today's hearing, we have received 9 requests from the parties that would like to make the presentations. I would like now to proceed. We're going to skip the evacuation procedures. We take it that wherever you are, you will be safe and that you will have a way of escaping any harm should there be an emergency wherever you are. At this point in time, I would like to call upon Eskom to give us their presentation. I've got the name of Onika Randwana from Eskom. May we have Onika to activate your camera, please?
I am. Yeah, I am in the meeting. Thank you.
Ready now? Okay, can you please unmute yourself, please, so that we can start?
Can you hear me?
We seem to have challenges with Eskom. Seem to have challenges. Colleagues, if you can bear with us until Eskom resolve the problem.
Apologies for that, Chairperson. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. If you are ready, we are ready for you. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence that you're going to provide to this panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and your designation at Eskom for the record.
I am Onika Rantwani, Chief Advisor in Electricity Pricing in Eskom Distribution.
All right. Thank you very much. You may then start with your presentation. The time is now 9:41.
Can you confirm that you are seeing my screen, Chairperson?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. Okay, so Chairperson, Eskom and appreciates the opportunity that you provided to us to request the proposed changes to our standard Eskom tariffs, which are contained in our submission of the retail tariff plan. These changes, Chairperson, are a response to the evolving energy industry, and they are premised on very key principles, one of them being the user pay principle, the sustainability in support of the just energy transition, as well as the regulatory compliance by ensuring that our tariffs are updated with the latest cost of supply studies. I would like to start off by clarifying, Chairperson, that this is not an application for a tariff increase, but we are merely applying to restructure our tariffs based on an already approved NESA revenue. We made similar applications in 2020 and 2022. However, only the Home Flex, the introduction of Home Flex residential tariff was approved in the 2022 retail plan that we submitted to the regulator. So, Chairperson, once the regulator approves the proposed changes that we submitted, these changes will be adjusted with the normal ETSA process, with the decision by the regulator on the MYPD6. Before I discuss our application in detail, Chairperson, I believe it is important that we provide the context in terms of our Eskom standard tariffs and their composition. So the proposed changes apply to our Eskom standard tariffs, which serve over 7 million customers nationwide. The residential customers make up most of our customer connections at 97%, but only contributes about 10% of the total revenue. The second largest tariff category is our local authority, which is our tariffs for municipalities, and this account for 44% of our total sales, followed by our urban tariffs, which supply industrial and commercial customers at 38%. Chair, we also have generators as part of our customer mix who use our Eskom network to export energy, and some of these changes will be impacting them. Now, coming to the motivation, Chair, as to why are we proposing these changes. The key motivation for these changes are premised on ensuring that we provide fairer tariffs, cost-reflective tariff structures, as well as simpler tariff structures that align with the evolving electricity market. Currently, Chair, we are sitting at a point where our tariffs do not reflect the actual cost structure of the services that are provided. We last updated our tariffs in 2012. And since 2013, we have been applying average increases through the ETA process. So this has now resulted in a mismatch between the tariff structures and the costs. So this application is meant to correct that. In addition, Chairperson, we know that we are in the process of unbundling Eskom, which is already underway with NTCSA now being a separate entity. So we need to have our tariffs also unbundled in support of the unbundling of the Eskom entities. Also, we know that with the approval of the ERA amendment, we are going into now a competitive electricity market, and this necessitates that tariffs are fully unbundled to reflect separately the energy capacity as well as network charges. And lastly, Chair, the motivation is to simplify our tariffs for municipalities as well as low consumption customers. We are planning to simplify the tariffs to remove the inclining block tariff structure as well as reduce the number of tariffs for municipalities. Now, this slide, Chair, provides a summary of our application, and I will go into the details of each in the slides to follow. What we are proposing to the regulator is to update all our tariffs with costs using the 2024-25 cost to serve, which is commonly known as a cost of supply study. And then we have to also, we would like to also propose the unbundling of the energy charges, which I will explain in the next slides that follow. We also proposing to simplify municipal tariffs. Currently, we have 10 main municipal tariffs, and we would like to reduce this to only 3 tariffs. Improvement of residential tariffs, as I've already mentioned, that for home light customers, we would like to introduce a flat cents per kilowatt hour tariff instead of the inclining block tariff. And then lastly, as part of our motivation to move towards sustainable electricity tariffs as well as fairer tariffs, we want to remove the credit that we provide for affordability subsidy for wheeling and customers that are doing offset. And lastly, we also would like to propose that the service charges that is currently charged at an account level be raised per pod. Then, Chair, the slides just provides an analysis of what we did in terms of our cost of supply study. As I said, the proposed tariff structures was based on an updated cost of supply study using the MYPD5 FY 2025 decision from the regulator. This cost of supply study, Chair, complies with the NESA cost of supply framework as well as the electricity pricing policy. The main purpose of the cost of supply study is to answer the question, and the question is, what is the cost to supply electricity to standard residential tariffs? And this takes into account the approved costs in the electricity value chain. So you've got your generation costs, which already are split into the cost of active energy legacy charges as well as generation capacity costs. We've got transmission, distribution, and administration and billing service costs. And these costs are then allocated using the different cost drivers. So, Chair, as part of this cost to serve study, we also update the network losses because now there is a change in network configuration as well as the forecasted volumes. So as I've mentioned, Chairperson, that we last updated our tariffs in 2012. So since 2013, we haven't updated our tariffs with costs. So I did indicate that we made similar applications in 2020 and 2022. With our various stakeholder engagements that we have been doing with this RTP, we were requested to provide a comparison between what has changed between our last application, which was in 2022, and this application. And this slide, Chair, just provides that difference. What is notable from this slide is that there is a reduction in the network charges, and this is aligned with the allowed decision for network charges, the allowed revenues that results in the reduction of network charges. And we can see also that notably the generation capacity charge that was proposed in the 2022 submission has now reduced significantly from a unit cost of 54 Rand per kVA to about 26 Rand per kVA. So the generation capacity costs are now sitting at 7%. Instead of the 20% that was proposed in 2022. And this is in line with the regulator's recommendation that we need to phase in this charge to reduce the customer impact. And this was as in the 2022 reasons for decision by the regulator. So we have complied with that and proposing to phase in this generation capacity charge at a lower value. Then coming to the details in terms of the unbundling of the energy charges, as I have mentioned, we are proposing to unbundle energy charges into the three components: time of use, generation capacity charge, as well as legacy charges. The first I will discuss in the next slide, but the time of use slides changes are mainly to assist the system operator in better managing the system and also to address the customer queries and concerns about the very high winter peak price. So we are responding to the customer request to reduce the winter peak price. And as I've mentioned, the generation capacity charge is introduced at about 7%. It is important to note that this is a signal for standby capacity. And it's a first step to ensure that we move now towards more sustainable electricity tariffs. So the 7% does not mean that it is a cost of generation capacity. And then lastly, Chair, we've got the legacy charges. Currently, this legacy charge is included in it's embedded in the variable time of use energy charges. And what we are proposing now is to ring-fence this cost, because this costs recover the RIP contracts under the Section 34 of the IPPs. So to ensure that all customers contribute fairly towards these costs, which were incurred as a country to enable additional generation onto the grid, we have to make sure that all customers then fairly contribute. So I think the main point of the slide is to explain that this is not an introduction of the charges, but we are unbundling the charges that are already in the total energy charges and now showing them separately so that the customers also need to see what they are paying for. Then coming into the motivation for the time of use changes, Chair, I think this slide, what we want to do is to explain why we are making changes to the time of use changes. What you can see is that since 2005, our tariffs haven't been updated, time of use tariffs. So they no longer reflect the current national system requirements or the customer's need. So what you can see from this slide, Chair, is that over the last 20 or 30 years, with the current time of use signal, there has been a significant increase in the evening peak. You can see that there's a reduction in the morning peak during the week, And what is interesting with this profile, Chair, is that you can see that now on a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we also experience the same peak, evening peaks as we do during the week. But our time of use signals that we have do not reflect this. And that is why we are proposing to make these changes to the time of use so that we can allow the system operator to optimally manage the system. Because as you can see from this, the evening peak now poses a daily challenge for the system operator to manage and control the system. So these are the proposed changes for the time of use. What we are proposing is to swap. Currently, we have 3 hours in the evening, and then we've got, 3 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. The proposal is to swap that to have 2 hours in the morning and then move the 3 hours to the evening, as you've seen in the previous slide here, that the evening peak is mainly the challenge now for the system operator. Then to respond to the customer's requests, we are proposing to change the current ratio. So the current winter peak ratio to the summer low demand ratio is 8:1, which means that electricity is 8 times higher during the winter peak than the lower demand. So we are proposing to change this ratio from a 1:8 to a 1:6. And this will assist customers also in managing their electricity costs. Then coming to the service charges, we are proposing, Chair, to raise service charge per port. So currently what we do is service charges are raised at an account level. But the problem with this, Chairperson, is that we've got accounts where one account has got only one port, and we've got accounts where one customer has got maybe 40 ports under one account. And both these customers pay exactly the same service charge. And you would agree with me, Chair, that then results in this unfair subsidization where customers with multiple ports now are subsidized by the customer with only one port. So to ensure fairness and equity among the customers, we are proposing to change this and to charge the service per port so that we reflect the cost that is aligned to what we want to do in terms of commitment to sustainable and equitable tariff structures. This change predominantly will be impacting LPU customers that have got multiple ports under one account. Then coming to wheeling, the proposed changes for wheeling, Chair, as I've mentioned, we are proposing to remove the affordability subsidy that is currently credited for wheeling, as well as customers who are doing net billing. And this is the only change that we are proposing. However, it is important to note that for customers that are wheeling, the credit that we provide will now be based on the revised energy rates, the time of use energy rates, but all the other charges are going to remain the same. Then coming to the Munich tariff rationalization, we are proposing to simplify municipal tariffs. This has been a request over time from both municipalities as well as the regulator. And this is one of the proposals that was supported by SALGA in our consultation when we did the tariff plan. So, and simply because it is going to assist municipalities, many municipalities with their costs, specifically the municipalities on rural tariffs, because this proposal then removes the differentiation between rural and urban tariffs. All the LPU tariffs, Megaflex, Miniflex, NightSafe, and RuralFlex are now going to be under one tariff structure called MuniFlex, and that results in the negative revenue impact, which means overall municipalities are going to be saving with this change. The small power tariffs are going to be combined as well under Munich rate, and the only tariff that we will leave as is the public lighting tariff. And the reason for this is because it is a non-metered tariff for public lighting supplies, but municipalities are encouraged to move to a metered tariff, and we have been engaging. Most of the municipalities have already started now to convert to a metered tariff so that they better manage their consumption. Then coming to the changes that we're proposing for residential tariffs, Chair, we are proposing to remove the inclining block tariff. For home power tariffs, which is a tariff for urban residential customers, we are proposing that the tariff should be unbundled and transparently reflect what the energy and network charges are. And then for home light, we are proposing a single cents per kilowatt hour energy rates. However, for home light, we are proposing that we retain the same level of subsidies for these indigent customers. And the reason for unbundling the residential tariffs, Chair, is that with the current IBT above 350 kilowatt hours, when a customer has to buy electricity, they will have to pay more per unit on IBT. And customers, I will show in the next slide that we have engaged customers and they have requested that we look into removing this tariff because they see it as punitive. However, we also see that for urban residential customers on the middle to high incoming group, because now with the improvements in technologies and the fact that they are able to adopt energy efficiency measures or move on to alternative energy sources, what ends up happening is that the customers who used to now consume around the second block tariff now moves their consumption into the second block, and this results in unintended subsidies. The IBT was intended to subsidize the poor, but currently what we are seeing is that it is now subsidizing the more affluent customers as a result of reduced consumption. So one of the key principles, as I said, Chair, is that we want to ensure that customers pay for the cost for the grid. All customers contribute for using the grid. We have been providing clarity to various media queries around this area, specifically relating to the impact of this on customers with solar PV. And the clarity that we want to provide, Chairperson, is that with the proposed unbundling, it does not mean that we are increasing the tariffs. So the current tariff, for example, it's bundled at a 3 rand per kilowatt hour. All we are doing now is to unbundle the tariff. On the customer's bill, it will show the differences between network, retail, energy charges, but the total tariffs remain the same that the customer needs to pay. And one of the key clarifications as well, Chair, is that customers who have completely disconnected from the grid, and by that I mean that you do not have an Eskom connection or Eskom meter, will not be required to make any payments to Eskom, because in that case you are not connected to Eskom. However, those that are connected to the grid, whether you've got solar or not, have to make the contribution to the grid for using the grid as a backup. Then the benefits of this, Chair, is that at average consumption, the customer is going to pay exactly what they are currently paying. We are providing compensation in the form of energy credits to customers that are exporting energy onto the network, so this further reduces their monthly bill. And what is important also to mention in this slide is that for Home Flex, which is a residential time of use tariff for customers with solar PV, and Home Power, which is now a non-solar PV tariff. These tariffs have got the same network and retail charges. So the proposed changes are not targeted at solar customers. And that's the clarity we've been providing also to the media. In terms of the motivation, as I've mentioned, Chair, we did a survey in 2022, and where we sent SMSs to 900,000 customers in all 11 official languages. And the results of this survey actually shows that 79% of the customers are not satisfied with the IBT tariff. And the reason is that it results in higher costs when they have to purchase more electricity in a month. 18% did say that they are satisfied. However, they also indicated that sometimes they want to buy more. For example, during December, they have their bonuses and they want to buy more electricity, but they can't because if they do that, then they will get fewer electricity units due to the IBT. So they do feel penalized for higher usage as a result of the IBT. So this customer feedback then supports our proposal to remove the IBT. And what we say is it's important to retain the subsidies so that the customers pays the same price, irrespective of how many times they buy electricity in a month. Then this last section of the presentation, Chair, is going to be dealing with the impacts, and I would like to start with the impact on subsidies. Subsidies are determined basically from costs. What we do is we have to understand what the cost of the subsidized tariff is from the cost to serve, and then the revenue difference between the tariff and the cost is what will be payable. So in Eskom, tariffs that receive a subsidy are indigent, residential, and rural customers, and these subsidies are paid by urban, large, and customers and municipalities. So when it comes to the impacts on the three types of subsidies that we've got, affordability subsidy and ELS, which is the electrification and rural subsidy, payable by all urban large customers, what we are seeing is that there is a significant reduction. ELS is going to be reducing by 69%, and the affordability subsidy by 53%. And this is due to the updating of these tariffs with costs. Then the third type of subsidy, which is the LV network subsidy. This is a subsidy that is payable by urban customers that are connected at higher voltages above 66 kV to reduce the cost of the lower connections. And this, Chair, because we have now ring-fenced the subsidies for municipalities, they see a massive reduction in terms of the LV subsidy by 93%, and the other LPU customers reduced by 68%. And this is one of the changes that was welcome also by SALGA in our engagements with them. Then this slide, Chair, just explains why we propose to retain the subsidies for the home light indigent customers. So the subsidies originate from the introduction of the IBT structure in 2010, as well as the NESA decisions to implement lower price increase for indigent customers over the years. For example, in 2023-24, the increase that was allowed for the indigent home light 20 customers was 10%, as opposed to the other tariffs where the increase was 18.65%. So then that results in the subsidies that sits within the home light. In this proposal, we are proposing that we retain these subsidies. We believe this poor indigent customers needs to be protected against the rising cost of electricity. And that is why they are going to be paying exactly what they are paying, even with the removal of the IBT tariff. And in this table, I've also included the home power customers just to show the differentiation between the average consumption of home light versus home power customers. Home power is a tariff now that supplies middle to high consumption customers. And you can see from the graph and the table that now almost 80% of this customers consume above 250 kilowatt hours, and these tariffs are not subsidized. That's the reason why we're proposing to retain only the subsidies for home light. Then coming to the impacts for all the proposed changes. So when we take everything that we are proposing and look at each of the tariff charge type, what is the impact? From this graph here, you can see that all the charges, as I've said, subsidies, network charges, retail charges are going to be coming down as a result of updating with costs, and only the energy is going to be going up. And this means that energy charges have been lower than what they're supposed to do, and the network charges have been higher than what they ought to be. But what is important is that with all these changes, we have to be revenue neutral, meaning we have to come back to the same revenue that has been approved by the regulator. This graph, it's a similar graph, but now shows the impact for each of the tariff categories. And you can see that some of the tariffs are going to be paying more, some are going to be paying less. I think what's notable from the graph is that the MegaFlex customers are the ones that are going to be paying more at 1.1% increase, and I'll expand this on the next slide. So if we look now at the customer level itself, you can see that for most of our urban LPU customers, they are going to be experiencing between a 0 to 1% change. So out of the 20,000 ports that we have for our LPU customers, 55% of them will see a 0 to minimal impact, and about 16% will save on their electricity bills. For municipalities, most of municipalities are going to be seeing lower charges. There's only 10% that will see an increase in their electricity tariffs. Then lastly, in terms of the impacts, coming to the impacts on the small power tariffs, if we look at home power tariff, which is a residential tariff for urban residential customers, land rate, which is a tariff for rural small power tariffs, and business rate, which is an urban tariff or urban small tariffs. All these three tariffs, Chair, you can see that we've got the green line that shows the proposed tariff, the red line which shows the cost reflective, and the blue bars shows what the customer is currently paying. So you can see that on all these three graphs, the green line, which is what we are proposing, is either aligned to costs or below costs for the land rate customers, which are subsidized. But what is important is that at average consumption, all these customers are not going to be negatively impacted. And notably, business rate customers are going to be saving across the board on their electricity tariffs. Then the impact on low consumption residential customers, as I've indicated, we are retaining the subsidies for home light customers. So you can see that the proposed tariff is below cost, which means that the gap now is going to be closed by the subsidies that are payable by the urban large customers. And we are not proposing any fixed charges for home light indigent customers. It's only a cents per kilowatt hour charges that is going to be the same irrespective of how many times they buy electricity in a month and how much they buy in a month. Then just to conclude, Chair, I would like to just summarize the benefits for all the tariffs in this proposal. There are benefits for each of the customer categories. Municipalities, urban tariffs, rural tariffs are all going to be benefiting from reduced overall fixed charges. Municipal customer subsidies are ring-fenced and now they are lower, resulting in lower contributions. There's reduced winter peak rates on time of use tariffs, which are going to be enjoyed by these customers. And generator tariffs are also going to be benefiting from reduced network charges. The residential tariffs, as I've said, there's no more higher payment for more electricity in a month for the indigent customers. And at average consumption, there are savings for residential customers, and we remain committed to energy transition. That's why we are providing compensation for the exporting of the energy. Then in conclusion, Chair, I think I just want to reiterate that this application is not a tariff increase application. Unbundling the tariffs is not going to generate additional revenue for Eskom. It is a reallocation exercise where we are now reallocating the charges to reflect the NERSA approved costs. Unbundling the tariffs, Chair, will ensure that we have fair cost recovery, we remove the unfair subsidies that are sitting in the system, and we support the responsible integration of alternative energy sources and the transition to a more sustainable electricity market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eskom. You managed to do the presentation in time. I think you went beyond just by 1 minute, but thank you very much. I would like to now open up the presentation for questions of clarity from the members of the energy regulator. By show of hands, members, if you have any questions to Eskom. Any questions, members? Only the members of the energy regulator will ask questions. No other person is allowed, and that is the rule. I read out the rules at the beginning of the hearing. So we're only taking questions from the members of the energy regulator. If you do have questions, as the audience, please put your questions down. I've given the email that says NERSA hearings.org.za or NERSA hearings at, what is it, public hearings at nersa.org.za, or you send it to patience.maswanganye@nersa.org.za. That's where you must send your questions. We will make sure that we ask the questions on your behalf and then obtain a response from Eskom if you have questions for Eskom. That is also for you, Mr. Ntombela. If you can lower your hand, if you have a question, please follow that process. Then we can be able to ask the question on your behalf. I'd like to ask Mr. Pukula if you may come in with the questions.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just need an explanation because I think the presenter only spoke about the affordability subsidy being removed. I may have missed the explanation for that. The second one is if the presenter can also just expand on the analysis of the actual costs of peak power supply versus maybe I think it's compared to off, and how did they decide to reduce to the ratio of 1:6? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pukula. Ms. Estemane.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. From my side, it's not a question. I just wanted to ask if our technical team cannot put the email addresses and the contact information on the chat. I don't see the chat itself. Maybe on their side they're able to see it so that the members of the public can participate. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you very much. If in the meantime, Ms. Maswanganye, you can kindly also put those email addresses so that the members of the public may send their questions through those email addresses. Advocate Sithole. Advocate Sithole, you may unmute.
Chairperson, yes, I think I was struggling to unmute myself. Chair, thanks to Ms. Randwane for her presentation. I just have one point of clarity, and I've also noted the fact that she said that this application from Eskom, it's not a tariff increase, but a reallocation of charges, and that I have noted. But I have a question in relation to the service charges, which she said that they are currently raised at port level, but grouped into one on per customer if a customer has got a number of ports. And therefore, then now the change would be that the service charge will be at per port. I just wanted to find out if what is the impact of their analysis on the customers in terms of what the customer would have to incur based on this particular change. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We're also going to take questions from the members of the public only if those questions are sent to us. If you can kindly do so, Ms. Maswanganye, please, so that we make sure that we put those questions to Eskom. Just a question from my side with regards to the restructuring of the tariffs across municipalities, which resulted in the differentiation the cost that may be associated with different with serving different municipalities. How would you? Okay, let me put the question this way: do you believe that such lack of differentiation will still be compliant? Will still be in compliance with the requirement to base the tariff on the cost of supply? It is one thing, the consideration of equity, which is not, which I'm not necessarily objecting to, but I just want to understand in terms of the mandate that we have at NERSA, if Eskom can kindly assist in appointing us to whether we will have the powers to ignore the differentiation based on cost in this regard, but take the issue of equity in consideration when we are looking at this differentiation or this restructuring. Those are the questions for now.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I'll start with the question from Mr. Bukula on the affordability subsidy. So as I mentioned, Chairperson, we are proposing to remove the affordability subsidy that is currently being credited. So it's not a subsidy that we are removing, it is the credit. We are currently crediting customers that are receiving wheeled energy from generators, as well as customers that are net billing. This proposal, Chair, the initial intention of the credit for the subsidy was to incentivize new generation when the wheeling framework was introduced back in about 2008. But what we are seeing now is that the subsidy, with the changes in the costs, is now resulting in offsetting the network charges. So what this means is that instead of the generators now paying Eskom, or the customers paying Eskom for using the grid, we end up paying the customer, because the subsidy then offsets the cost of the network. And that is why we are proposing to remove this, and to ensure that, because the fact that customers that are willing do not pay the subsidy, it creates a shortfall, and that shortfall means it has to be recovered from urban LPU customers. So to ensure that we are fair to all customers, we are proposing that every customer should contribute towards the socioeconomic subsidies. Then the next question around the analysis of the reasons for the peak to off-peak. Chair, as I've mentioned, that we were requested by customers as well as the regulator previously to relook at the 8-to-1 ratio, which is putting a strain on our economy with our urban customers during the winter peak months, as well as municipalities. So we then are coming with a proposal to say we are proposing to reduce this from the 8-to-1 ratio. Now, instead of the peak price being 8 times the summer peak price, we're reducing it to be a 6-to-1. And what that change does, obviously, then it results in a revenue shortfall. So we have to rebalance the charges so that within the standard period as well as the off-peak period, then we recover the same revenue that is intended to recover the time of use energy costs. So it was as a result of that. Then coming to the question by Ms. Sithole in terms of the service charges and the impact of this analysis of moving per port. Chair, we have done some analysis, but due to the significant reduction, I did indicate in my impact slide that all the charges are going to be reducing quite significantly. The retail charges are going to be coming down by almost 60%. So because of this reduction in the service charges, the charging the service per port instead of per account is not going to impact most of the customers, especially those with multiple ports, less than 20 ports in an account. However, I think it's important, Chair, that we shouldn't view this change in isolation. As I've said, it might be a large power customer or a municipality that has got multiple ports under one account. Some charges are going to be going up, some are going to be going down. And what we've done with our consultations with municipalities is to encourage them to view the changes in totality so that you look at the bottom line for the municipalities. And our analysis shows that about 70% of the municipalities are going to be saving, which is most of the customers that have got multiple ports under one account. Then I think the last question in terms of from you, Chair, the restructuring of municipal tariffs and differentiating between rural and urban costs. So this, the lack of differentiation, it does still comply with the requirements of the cost of supply. All we have done, Chair, is that we have done the allocation as we have been doing, where the allocation of the cost is done per tariff, the rural tariffs and the urban tariffs. And then we combine these costs into what we call a Munich flex. As I've shown on the slide, there's rural flex, customers on municipalities that are currently on rural flex, some are on mega flex, mini flex, etc. All we are doing now is to combine those costs, and the tariff Munich flex will then be categorized as an urban tariff, but it still recovers the same costs, combined rural and urban costs that were allocated in the cost of supply for this category of municipal tariffs. So it does comply with that aspect, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I check if there's any follow-up question from the members? Okay. Ms. Maswanganyi, I have not seen any email from my side with regards to questions from the members of the public. May you confirm that we will receive none?
I just received one. Can I please forward it now? And
yes,
Chair, I would like to apologize. The chat for this meeting was turned off and IT is assisting in turning it on.
Okay, please send the question via the email.
Okay.
Members, if you can give us just 1 minute so that we can get the email.
Send, Chair.
Thank you very much. Just waiting, refreshing our emails. If the members have received, you may go ahead if you have received the question to ask the question on behalf of the member of the public. There is a question that comes from a member of the public. It is still the energy. The question is that Eskom has applied for 3.2 billion for IDM for the next 3 years. How many megawatts are they intending to save with the program? That is the question that I received. I'm not sure if there's another question, but Eskom, in the meantime, may you please respond to this question?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think, Chair, I would request that for this question, we will provide the feedback in writing because it is not related to the application. So we will engage our colleagues in regulation because it is related to the MYPD application. and then provide that feedback. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That is acceptable. If there are no further questions from the members, I would then like to thank Eskom for your presentation and for the time that you have taken this morning to come and do the presentation and provide clarification. At this point in time, I would like then to move on to the next presenter. And the next presenter is the Solar Group. May we get the person who's going to represent the Solar Group? I've got the name of Jonathan Skin. Jonathan, are you in? Jonathan is waiting in the lobby. Patience, can you please assist the committee here?
We've let him in, Chair.
We are waiting for Jonathan to activate your camera, please, to give us a presentation for the Solar Group.
Sorry, Chair. Jonathan is waiting on the lobby to be allowed to log in to do the presentation.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. Please, RSU, can you assist us in making sure that we proceed efficiently here and assist with all of these glitches that we are experiencing? Jonathan, are you in now?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody. Apologies for that delay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jonathan, we are now at the stage of the Solar Group providing its presentation for this public hearing. Do you have any objection in taking the oath?
No, I don't.
All right. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide to this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. Are you the only person that is going to give the presentation?
I am, yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Khotsosi Lokuma, may you please lower your hand? All right, Jonathan, you may start with your presentation.
Thank you. I've just shared my screen. Can I ask if everybody can see this?
I'll confirm. It's still okay.
Let me try again. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is. You may start.
Thank you. I will go straight into it so as not to use up any extra time. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this forum on this incredibly important issue for Eskom and the power system, but for the economy as a whole. I will just go straight to our contents. We'll do a very brief introduction on who we are, just to give some context of where our comments come from. We are focusing quite significantly on the retail tariff plan in terms of the wheeling transactions, which is a large focus of our group. So we'll look at the benefits of wheeling as they stand, the impacts of the retail tariff plan on wheeling, and the broader impacts and issues that we've noticed with the retail tariff plan. And I want to maybe just before I start, just first of all, acknowledge the efforts and the work that has gone into restructuring the tariffs, which we think is absolutely necessary in the context of such a dynamic power system and market, as well as the efforts to promote fair contribution to affordability of power in the network. And that is certainly something that we completely acknowledge, but we also would like to raise our own concerns about some of the negative impacts as we see them of the retail tariff plan. Very briefly, the Solar Group is a 100% South African-owned company, we are vertically integrated, which we mean by saying that we are an IPP, but we also have a fully fledged engineering and construction company that builds clean energy projects. We own, develop, finance, design, build, and operate our projects, and we do that as a 100% South African company. We are a pioneer of clean energy wheeling in South Africa. We currently operate 3 wheeling facilities, solar wheeling facilities, of over 300 megawatts on the network, and we are building several hundred megawatts in addition to that. And those projects are selling power to private buyers on bilateral PPAs, and they are enabled by Eskom's wheeling mechanism. The benefits of wheeling are very substantial. We've broadly categorized them as the economic benefits, the benefits to the network and Eskom, and the benefits to our communities in which we work. In terms of the economic benefits, wheeling is conducted on a willing buyer, willing seller basis between private entities. Because of that type of transaction, it's not subject, obviously, to a very rigid and timeous procurement process. It unlocks investment very quickly. It enables rapid deployment of capacity of clean generation onto the network, and it is able to adapt in real time to market evolution. The wheeling transactions in South Africa, which are still at a nascent stage, are very critical, as we see it, to the creation of the open market that's contemplated by the recent ERA Amendment Act that was passed at the end of 2023. You cannot have an open market unless you have tradable power on the market that is available to buy and sell. And these wheeling projects, we really strongly believe, are driving the creation of a pool of power that can be traded. And this is a critical foundation to the eventual realization of a competitive generation market to drive down prices and to create competition in the generation sector for the benefit of the economy. Obviously, the competition between IPPs at present is already incredibly intense. That is already driving down the costs of our services. We constantly have to innovate and improve our costs, and that's lowering the costs of production of numerous businesses across the economy. In terms of the benefits of wheeling to Eskom and the network, obviously, when these private entities such as ourselves develop and build projects such as this, we have to invest substantially into grid connection infrastructure. And as we advance into deploying these projects, the level of investment generally that we have to do is much higher, because we are obviously reaching the limits of grid capacity in many areas, and we have to invest substantial funds into the expansion of the grid, and with many assets being transferred to Eskom after they are developed at no cost. We do pay, obviously, fees to Eskom in the form of our grid connection agreements, and the fees therein. There are wheeling fees that our buyers pay to the network as well. And we fully expect that there will be future fees in relation to these transactions, for example, around balancing charges. This is all revenue for the grid operator in the country. It's a very, very real source of revenue. And I want to raise this point because I think that this is one of the themes of the retail tariff plan, which we really do want to challenge, which is that the idea that wheeling projects and alternative generators are a net negative on, or have to be a net negative on network flexibility and network balancing. There is a wide precedent for variable renewables using batteries and other technologies as well, being a major source of network stability in modern low power carbon systems, and we will comment a little bit more on this in a subsequent slide. Then there are obviously substantial community benefits to the projects that we and many of our competitors are doing as well. The solar group alone, in terms of our wheeling projects, we've created over 1,700 construction jobs, which run for anywhere from 12 to 24 months at a time. That also includes several hundred operation jobs, which are permanent jobs. We've employed 600 contractors across our wheeling sites. Those are often local businesses that we support and help to get up and running in terms of our commitments to creating small businesses and small enterprises. We've provided a huge range of training and education opportunities for over 500 people, and we've assisted over 2,000 school learners across the Free State and the Northwest provinces in particular, in terms of their education and advancement. And I think something that we are also very proud of is that we've created 100 highly skilled careers for directly employed professionals, which include engineers, project managers, technicians, draft people, development professionals, lawyers, accountants, and administrators. And these are people who have obviously families and children who they are educating and sending to schools and universities and really creating a cascading effect on the economy. The impacts of the retail tariff plan, we've picked through in our response, in our written response, in a little bit more detail, the individual impacts of the various elements of the plan. So we've just looked at the very high-end impacts using our sort of very advanced models that we have to analyze the tariff structures. There's an immediate 30 to 40% erosion of the economic benefits of wheeling transactions in this case for a large-scale solar PV project. And that is without commenting on the costs of the network balancing, which is obviously a huge part of this discussion, that is a major market shock for an industry that's really only just starting out and has already made a huge contribution to, as I've mentioned, employment and the development of clean energy, and also the provision of generation capacity in the context of load shedding. Market shocks like this obviously have the effect of eroding investor confidence, and the future plans that are outlined in the documents in general are obviously make it clear that further tariff changes will take place, but they are stated in very general terms and are often quite open-ended. And I think any policymaker will know that the less clarity you have on future changes, the less you are likely to drive the industrial development of these economic sectors. As I mentioned before, we obviously believe that the push for the fair contributions to affordability is entirely justified, but the claims of the fair treatment do need to be considered in light of the challenges that the independent power sector, especially in the wheeling context and outside of the IPP process, face on a day-to-day basis in doing business in the context of a national utility that is utterly dominant in the power system. And there's just a few examples here of various ways in which IPPs actually absorb a huge range of costs that are not necessarily accounted for in this analysis. For example, when we connect to the grid, we provide significant we take on significant risk and provide significant monetary guarantees to Eskom, but there's no reciprocal provision of penalties or guarantees for late delivery of Eskom services. We deliver energy to the network when we connect during the commissioning phases, the hot commissioning phases of our projects, which we are not compensated for. And there are obviously, these are just some examples, but there are challenges arising all over the place in terms of Eskom's broader influence and control of the power system. And that's not this is not intended as a criticism of Eskom as an entity. It's more just pointing out to the fact that any entity that has its economic and financial and managerial targets to run its business and achieve its goals in a sound manner, such as Eskom, is obviously going to adopt a competitive mindset to its competitors, and that needs to be considered as well. I'm going to move on to our next slide, this is the final slide, so we've tried to keep it quite short. Again, our response is more detailed. Just to touch on a few, what we've distilled as some of the critical issues, and unfortunately we don't have all of our content here, but we've just really tried to keep this short. The cost to serve study and many of the assumptions we believe need some interrogation and further explanation from Eskom, especially in relation to the determination of fixed cost. We will just touch on a few examples here. The use of the determination of the actual capacity charge levels based on the assumption that combined cycle gas turbines must meet the flexibility needs of the network. We believe that needs to be closely interrogated. For example, the forecasts that are contained in the reports around the generation profile in 2030 appear to include no battery energy storage for the balancing of supply and demand. This is completely at odds with precedent across multiple other power systems in the world that are similar to South Africa in the sense that they have access to large amounts of low-cost solar energy in particular. We also see no evidence in the documents of the evaluation of sources of flexibility that are not provided directly by peaking facilities, and that the determination of the cost obviously assumes that a peaking facility is the cost is benchmarked to the cost of running an open cycle or combined cycle gas turbine. So there's we don't see any evidence of an attempt to evaluate other mechanisms or other means to increase the flexibility of the network that is potentially at low cost or no cost to the network. So this would include increasing demand flexibility, the various and wide ranges of applications of energy storage, both short-term and long-term, improved system operation, which is obviously a huge factor when we in the context of increasing fixed costs, the creation of markets we mentioned, for example, balancing markets in the network, and also the exploration of other sources of flexible generation, which includes both Eskom's generation, but also alternative generators. And that really, that speaks to the point of, to the next point, which I'll get to, but also then obviously the modernization and the evolution of the transmission system as well. The next point we want to flag is that Eskom in the assumptions in the documents treats 100% of alternative generators as intermittent. So there is a blanket assumption that alternative generators create costs to the network or must create costs to the network and will in future continue to do that because the assumption is effectively that alternative generators are solar and wind energy. There is, again, wide precedent around the world for alternative generators and independent generators to provide flexible generation and to provide, in many cases, peaking generation. Our entire business is focused on this issue. Again, we acknowledge the evolution of the market and the duck curve effects that are arising that Eskom is addressing through these changes. We have spent several years developing our own responses to those types of issues, and we can confirm that there is already, just using existing technologies and current equipment prices, there are already means to dispatch clean energy during peak periods in large volumes using through alternative generators and IPP projects. We also don't see any sort of efforts or evidence of really to differentiate again between generators that really are intermittent or variable, such as pure solar and wind, and other potential generators that could promote flexible network flexibility. And we feel like that's a very significant omission in the proposed tariff structure. We do believe that tariff structures could certainly be implemented that actually benefit the provision of energy from alternative generators that might benefit the network. And really, the approach of effectively trying to capture the full costs of balancing the network in a simplistic capacity charge. Really, we feel that has without fully unpacking and exploring all of these other avenues, we feel that has a risk of leading to the delayed evolution and modernization, and also the decarbonization of the power system. Because obviously, the more we increase fixed costs, the more Eskom as an entity can continue to operate facilities with a reduced economic feedback or performance feedback loop. Where reduced performance results in lower revenues. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. That is the full extent of our submission. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present our thoughts and views.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skin. May I then check with the members of the energy regulator if there are any questions? By show of hands, members, if you do have questions. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Skin, may you just explain to me, there's a line or a slide that you have that talks about for the affordability versus IPPs competing with the national utility. I don't understand what you are getting to there. And the follow-up to that is that, are you talking about the affordability subsidy in this particular instance? Or you talking about affordability of electricity prices in general? The second question is, of the other 7 proposals that Eskom has on rationalization of tariffs and other things, what is your comment on that? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bula. If you can please take down the 2 questions. We also have some questions, 2 more questions. I'm hoping that you have taken down the questions.
Yes, could I just ask for the second question to be repeated around the 7 proposals?
Okay, Mr. Bula, do you
Eskom
want? Yes, please.
Yes, Eskom in the application that we are looking at right now has made 7 proposals or changes to the existing tariff structures, and I wanted your comments on those 7 proposed changes. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to respond to these questions? Have you taken them down?
Yes, I can respond now.
Okay, respond, but we do have 2 more questions. You may respond.
Okay.
Yes.
On the point around the affordability subsidy, just to elaborate on that point again, obviously Solar absolutely believes in contributing to the affordability of power on the network on an equal basis. But if I can elaborate on this point a bit more, any new economic sector cannot be expected to launch to compete in the compete against a national incumbent on a completely equal footing. And if that, in terms of policy making for any new technological or industrialization, there needs to always be some consideration of the fact that we are actually a tiny sector, and for us to compete entirely on an equal footing with a national generator that has been operating in the country for 80 years and basically includes both the transmission and the bulk of the generation capacity in the country, is not that kind of approach is not going to promote the development and evolution of the economy as a whole. So what we are trying to just highlight there is that the contributions to affordability must be fair, but there are numerous other effects of being a small nascent industry in the context of a much larger competitor that also need to be considered holistically in this sense. And the very specific example that I provided was that in the provision of in the execution of wheeling deals, for example, we provide very significant financial guarantees on the execution of our performance under our grid connection agreements, but we are not provided with monetary or financial penalties in the case of non-performance by Eskom. And what that actually results in is that where there are delays in for example, our being able to connect our facilities to the network, which have huge financial impacts on us, we are not compensated for that. So I think we just want to flag that operating in the sector, in a nascent sector that has huge potential for future economic growth, you can create you can sort of create the illusion of a completely equal playing field between an IPP and Eskom, but certainly that's not. There's many ways in which that is not the case. On the second point, I think probably in terms of time we can go through our response in terms of all of the points that we've responded to in the 7 proposals. What we've obviously tried to do is just capture the overall effects of all of them as applied. I'm not sure how much time there is to do that, but we would probably reference. We can just reference the submission that we have made within the process. It's a fairly substantial document that we've put forward, unless the chair would like me to step through that report right now.
No, I would not expect you to go through everything that you have submitted, but I'm sure Mr. Pugula also did not expect you to do that. But I think he would like us to get a sense of those steps. Mr. Pugula, maybe if I have covered you, may you please come in?
Yes, Chairperson, you have. I am comfortable with then having a look at what has been submitted, and if we have additional questions, we will ask for those. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Skin. Okay, so Mr. Skin, you made mention that there's adverse effect on the renewable energy, in particular solar, with regards to the restructured tariffs. May you just be specific, but also what I'm more interested in is your proposed solution. for the energy regulator to consider, the adverse effect that you are referring to. I think for us, it's important to see how that adverse impact can be addressed. Do you have a proposed solution when it comes to that? Also, the second question relates to any solution that you are proposing when it comes to a tariff structure that could accommodate the flexible generators that may be included in the system on the grid. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I think, look, if we were to distill our thoughts there, we certainly believe that that Eskom should, we would suggest that Eskom and NERSA should detail ways in which the flexibility of the network can be enhanced through the use of energy storage, through potential improved system operation measures. We would like to see, much greater clarity and detail on the development of balancing markets and markets that serve network flexibility. We believe that needs to be pursued with great urgency. And then I think probably the main point is that, as a simpler point, we would recommend the separation of alternative generators in terms of the tariff structures, and to be treated as either based on the type of power that they are delivering and are capable of delivering. So any type of tariff that can actually promote and reward the delivery of energy during high demand periods, or a tariff structure that can do that, will obviously not promote the rollout of entirely variable renewables that may negatively impact the balancing of the grid, but they will promote the rollout of generators that can deliver power during peak. And obviously, one of the things we noted, and which obviously given the reasonably short time provided to review the documents, is that Eskom, one of the stated objectives of the plan in terms of the tariff ratios is to send the right market signals in the context of the solar duck curve and increased demand during peak relative to demand in the middle of the day. But we see that the ratios are actually decreased. So we believe that there's some nuance there, and potentially the creation of a tariff structure that does actually promote flexibility of alternative generators.
All right, thank you very much. I'm hoping that that part is also covered in your written submissions that you submitted to NERSA, just to check, so that if you haven't, you may still submit additional points to make it clearer how you would like the energy regulator to look into it. If you can submit that in the next 7 days, if you haven't covered it sufficiently in your written submissions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've noted that. We will do so if anything is missing.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We now move on to the next presenter, and the next presenter is eThekwini Ratepayers Protest Movement. May we have the representatives of eThekwini Ratepayers Protest Movement?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for allowing us this opportunity to put forward our submission and our questions. As the eThekwini Ratepayers Protest...
Sorry. We have read out the procedures that before we allow any presenter to provide the presentation, you have to take the oath first. So if you can kindly activate your camera.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you have any objection in taking the oath?
No.
All right. May you please raise your right hand? Okay. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide to this panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. May you please state your name and your designation at eThekwini Ratepayers Protest Movement?
My name is Asid Gafar. I'm the chairperson of the eThekwini Ratepayers Protest Movement.
All right. Are you the only person that is going to give us presentation today? You've got 10 minutes to do your presentation.
Yes, I have with me the deputy chair, but I will do the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. You may start with your presentation. The time is now 10:59. Thank you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so from our side, we understand that there was a need to come up with a new cost to serve model that would determine the tariffs for Eskom going forward. We also acknowledge that there was a High Court judgment that forced this process to actually come into place. When we look at this document that was put forward to us, all 122 pages of this retail tariff plan was silent in regards to the illegal connections across the country that is affecting the cost to serve. And these illegal connections have a direct impact in terms of the cost to serve in regards to electricity. According to the latest housing data supplied by the Department of Human Settlements, as of October 30th, 2023, there are 4,297 informal settlements across the country. These are home to more than 2 million people, most of whom are concentrated in the metros, meaning Joburg, Cape Town, and eThekwini. Eskom's current proposal in terms of the municipal tariff rationalization and the fact that the metros are largely affected by informal settlements means that these informal settlements are subjected to the new tariffs for the larger power users. The argument that we are presenting is that most of these informal settlements are illegally connected to the distribution network and are the major consumers of electricity. These informal settlements are unmetered. Most of them have DSTV, which means there is a fridge in that household. We also found a fridge, stoves, and kettles. Now, Chair, we're not talking about depriving someone from the right to life or the dignity to basic human rights. Our argument is if they are consuming this electricity, then surely they must be charged for it or they need to pay for it. The fact that informal settlements are unmetered means that NERSA and Eskom and the municipalities have no real understanding of the actual consumption in these households and are not being included in the cost to serve calculations. We are not presenting an argument to deny any of these individuals the right to a dignified life, as I've said. However, in the spirit of our constitution and our democracy, all consumers of electricity must be treated equally and therefore pay for services that they use. Government has committed to giving free basic electricity at R1.94 per kilowatt to qualifying households for the 2024-2025 municipal financial effective 1st of July 2024. We stress the point above to qualifying households. Meaning that they are part of the grid and therefore a proper calculation can and must be done. SANEDI, the South African National Energy Development Institute, however, has committed to reviewing the free basic electricity of 50 kilowatts per month, given the fact that a recent study has indicated that these households are using between 300 to 400 kilowatt hours per month. With the above in mind, the estimated reality is that the factored calculation is inaccurate by a margin of nothing less than 6. Most municipalities have an outdated register of indigent beneficiaries. Some don't even have registers, which directly impact the financial budget of that particular municipality. Therefore, the paying consumers are being prejudiced. Eskom, SANEDI, and the municipalities across the country need to tackle the issue of illegal electricity connections as a matter of urgency. The technology exists for all role players to provide these households with a basic smart meter that can dispense the free basic electricity of 50 kilowatt hours per month. We therefore argue that the cost to serve must include all consumers of electricity and not only the paying consumers. This brings us to our questions, Madam Chair. Based on the above, your cost to serve is inaccurate. Sorry, not yours, Eskom's, is inaccurate. And when will this be rectified? My second question would be, what would be the time frame to implement metered connections across all electricity consumers? And by extension, what is your deadline to eradicate illegal connections? The next question is, what are the estimated costs of getting free basic electricity to those who still don't have access? So there are many people within the country who still do not have access to electricity. When will that be rectified? And lastly, my last question, we direct this question to you, Madam Chair, and to NERSA. What action is being taken against the delinquent municipalities who are not paying their electricity bill? As we all know, that bad debt is also factored into the cost to serve, despite it being in Eskom's retail tariff plan. That is our submission. Thank you very much.
Ms. Maseti, you may be muted. Ms. Maseti, you may be talking to a muted mic.
Sorry, did you not hear anything I was saying?
It was very difficult to hear you. There were some parts that we couldn't hear, and I'm not sure whether you are driving or what, but there were some areas that we couldn't hear from what you were saying. Mr. Pugula, were you also raising the same thing?
Yes, Chair, but I'm fine. I could hear most. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Gaffer, are you done with your presentation, or you still want to proceed?
No. I was done, and I put some questions through. We will submit our proposal or our presentation in writing to NERSA.
Yes.
If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Gaffer? It seems the members are happy with the presentation. If you can kindly share your presentation with NERSA, we'll appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, colleagues, we are now moving on to the next presentation. That presentation will come from Subvia, and I have the name of Divet Taliard.
Good morning, Chair.
All right. Okay, do you have any objection in taking the oath, Mr. Taliard?
No.
All right, thank you very much. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you very much. May you please state your name and your designation at Subvia? And you may also just provide the full citation of the association for the record.
Will do. The name is Divet Taliard. Designation is Technical Specialist Solar Energy on the Subvia Secretariat. And the full name of the association is the South African Photovoltaic Industry Association.
Right, thank you very much. You may start with your presentation.
Thank you very much. I'll fix it from our side. Just a brief overview of the contents of the submission from a SAPVIA perspective, and I'll jump straight in, not to waste any time. This just added for reference our vision and our mission and what we do, but I think it's more important to get to the real important part of the submission, but it is in part of the slides for reference. Just a quick overview of who we represent. As an industry association, we style ourselves as the voice of the solar PV industry in South Africa. And as you can see, we've seen significant growth in member companies over the last 12 to 14 years, with a really big increase coming in 2024. Majority of our members are SMMEs, with the balance made up of corporates that operate throughout the solar PV value chain in South Africa. Just a quick visual representation of our corporate members that we represent, just to give those on the committee and on the hearing a brief view of who we represent, and just to indicate the broad spectrum of members that we represent. And I hope that the information shared through the written submission and the comments will show that scope of our members' participation in the solar PV value chain. And we've tried to incorporate as many of those views and inputs from our member base. Also, just important to note for the record that Eskom is also a member of SAPVIA, so we've taken their views into account as well. So first of all, just two introductory remarks that we would like to start off with. Firstly, is to acknowledge the complexity of the task at hand. As was mentioned in the previous submissions, that the South African energy supply industry is currently undergoing really important but rapid transformation, changing from that which we've known over the last 80 years into a more dynamic, more modern energy supply industry. But what is important to note is that regulatory reforms are needed and really important to ensure that transition is equitable and that end consumers benefit on behalf of that, or benefit through that transition at the end of the day. What's important to note is that from global experience in developing and developed markets, is that energy supply industry reform is a complex, challenging process with many moving parts, and it's a really long-term project, as can be seen in both developing and developed markets. And what we see as this first step in tariff restructure and tariff design is really the first step in a long journey of making the energy supply industry modern and dynamic, which we're all working towards. And then finally, we just want to acknowledge the Eskom teams for the hard work and dedication they've put in to develop the cost to serve study, but also the retail tariff plan. Really complex work being done. And as we stated earlier, it is a first step in the direction of complete and more broader electricity supply industry reform. Just one important point to note that was highlighted through our extensive SAPVIA member feedback. One concern that was raised was around the limited time frame for review, specifically around the timings in terms of the calendar year. Some concerns were raised over the timing throughout the festive season, but we've noted that in our written submission as well. And I think just to point out, given the substantial ramifications and impact of this proposed retail tariff plan on the broad renewable energy industry, but also on the cost of energy for consumers, any future engagements or any future iterations of this retail tariff plan, we would encourage more time for broad stakeholder participation, but also to enable those stakeholders to consult expert external opinions and be given sufficient time to bring all of those inputs and opinions together to ensure that there is real broad consultation on topics as important as this. So jumping into the key inputs and comments, we've tried to distill the most important comments as part of our written submission. We won't go through all of them, but we've tried to really distill and synthesize the most important comments here. Happy to elaborate on some of the other inputs in the written submission, but for now we'll keep it to these most important parts. First and foremost, Sapphire advocates for a cost to serve methodology that employs true cost to serve or marginal cost to serve methodology for future retail tariff plan applications. As was noted by the Eskom submission, the current cost to serve is a allocation of allowable revenue, as opposed to what's termed a true or marginal cost of supply study, where the actual real cost of providing services and providing energy to end users is determined. Sapphire acknowledges that it is a complex task, and this is the first step, but really encourages the Eskom team and NERSA to really push for true marginal cost of supply studies to form the basis of future cost to serve studies and retail tariff applications. So fundamentally, that's our feedback on the cost to serve, and also just to note that whatever the methodology is that is employed, it needs to be transparent, it needs to be repeatable and open for external verification and review as far as is practically possible. The second point to raise, and that was raised in the previous submission as well, is really the combination of the peak hour and ratio change and the potential impact on the wheeling business case. As was mentioned, there's a significant impact on the conjunction of those two changes on the business case for wheeling. And this is something that we would like to highlight, and really for the regulator to take the broad impact of multiple changes to the retail tariff plan and the potential negative impact on the business case of wheeling into account when making a decision. What's really important to highlight is that the presence of a competitive private wheeling market as a viable alternative to Eskom generation is important to promote growth of the competitive South African energy market. As we know, that is the ultimate goal, is the introduction of the South African wholesale energy market, and having true competition on the generation front is a key building block to ensuring that the most affordable energy sources rise to the top, and that customers ultimately pay the least amount of or the least amount for energy that they consume. One last point to note is that an important point is that any change to the tariff structure that is directly linked to system operator requirements, that those system operator requirements be communicated in a very clear, transparent, and technically sound manner, and that those requirements be open to evaluation and interrogation by external experts. Whenever there's a technical requirement that has an impact on tariff structure, it's really important that those requirements be conveyed in a very clear way, and it be open to review and verification. Then, touching on the unbundling of the energy charges, as mentioned previously, this is a really important part of the evolution of the energy supply industry, and it's something that is supported by Sapphire, but with some important caveats. We are of the opinion that all end users per category, whatever that category definition is, whether it be rural, urban, voltage levels, or a specific usage pattern, or whatever metric is decided upon, that all of the end users in that class, in that category, should be subjected to the same fixed charge methodology. Obviously, the outcomes will differ as the inputs to that methodology differs, but we are strong proponents that the methodology applied should be the same to all customers in that category, and that's a really important point to make. The second one is really around, I think it's an acknowledgement from SAPIA that this retail tariff plan is a first step, and we understand that the complexities around bringing smart meter data and dynamic fixed charge cost determination is maybe a step too far for this first iteration, but that's something that we would actively encourage the Eskom teams to evaluate in future iterations, but also for the regulator to really push for those dynamic charge determination, as is mentioned in those three round bullet points. Is that the dynamic nature of solar PV and battery energy storage deployment specifically would open up a lot of opportunities, not only for the customer to benefit, but also for the network service provider or the distribution system operator to benefit from. Just one last point to make is that we believe at SAPIA that the system-wide benefits.
May you please
PV
wrap up, Mr. Talia? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 more slides left. If you'd allow me the opportunity to just go through those 2 slides, it would be really appreciated. Thank you very much, Chair.
2 minutes only, because you are over the time. If you can take 2 minutes now. Thanks.
I will do my best. Thank you very much, Chair. All of these submissions are also captured in the written submission. So, as I believe this is the last slide. As was mentioned in the previous submission, the generation capacity charge determination requires a lot more detail and scrutiny, specifically on the technology cost assumptions, as was seen in the IRP stakeholder engagements. Cost assumptions and specifically cost learning curves assumptions have a really big impact on what the total system cost would be. And we would implore the Eskom teams to really employ the same learnings from that IRP process and really look at a technology optimized mix, taking both fossil fuel and clean firm generation technology options into account in the determination of that generation capacity charge. And then just lastly, on the home power and the home flex tariff, I think it is really important to note that we believe that time of use flexibility and the downstream system benefits should be open to both home flex and home power users, specifically for those homeowners that have battery energy storage systems installed, but don't necessarily have solar PV systems installed. That embedded storage capacity can still be used effectively to manage the consumption patterns of that customer and enable system-wide benefits, but also enable savings benefits that a time of use tariff would allow. And then just the last point is that we believe that the fixed cost methodology and the fixed cost should be equal for home flex and home power tariffs, regardless of the presence of solar PV generation. As was mentioned by the Eskom submission, both customers are connected to the network and they rely on the same amount of grid services to be connected. So that fixed charge methodology and that fixed tariffs should be equal for both those customers. The last points is listed in the written comments, so I don't think it's necessary to touch on them. And just some key takeaways.
Written comments.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Colleagues, do you have any questions of clarity from Mr. De Wet? Show of hands, members, if you have any. Thanks, Mr. Pokula. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. De Wet, can you just help me understand with the peak hour ratio concern that you are saying it's going to erode into that, but what I want to understand from PV systems, I mean, what changes in costs during the peak time, other than that your production would be reducing, and the fact that with the current peak ratio you get a higher benefit, you get 8 times that, and what's going to happen is you're going to get 6 times the rate now. But I really want to link it to what changes in your cost of PV systems would really require that 6 times or 8 times the rate. And the second question is around I didn't understand the part where you talk about the subsidization of smart meters. If you could just explain that part, and what is this benefit, or what are we trying to achieve? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pokula. That is all from our side. If you may respond to those questions, Mr. De Wet.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Bakula, if I understand the question correctly, you are asking what would be the impact of the ratio change from 1 to 6, or from 1 to 8 to 1 to 6.
Yes, I think I understand the impact. It's going to reduce your profitability, but I want to know what costs associated with the PV systems are affected by this change. Other than that, it really affects your profitability. But in as far as the cost of a PV system, there's nothing that changes during that time in as far as your costs. So it shouldn't be an issue. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification there, Mr. Bakula. As you may know, that the majority of these large utility scale projects that serve wheeling clients are predominantly project financed, and as the project finance structure determines, obviously your cost of capital and the cost of debt is dependent on the business case and the business viability of that project. So if you are projecting that you will be able to sell less amount of kilowatt hours at a specific rate, and that has an impact on your business case, so will the financing cost of the project increase. As you rightly say, that the technology cost will not be impacted, the physical cost of panels and batteries and so on, but ultimately it is the financing cost which will change and will have a really substantial and significant impact on the viability, but ultimately on the business case as well. And just to note that impact on the business case, as was mentioned in the previous submissions, really does have an impact on the downstream impacts of the project. So both in terms of the community development, the sustainable aspects, but also the amount of jobs created and the economic development impacts.
All right, thank you very much for your responses. Would like to now, we don't have any further questions, but would like to thank you for your time and for the presentation. And if you can also just share your presentation that you made today with the colleagues at NERSA. Thank you very much.
Will do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, I would like to proceed to the next presenter, that is Safsei, and I have the name of Mishka Murat. May you please activate your camera?
Thank you, Chair. Please confirm if you can see me.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. All right. Do you have any objection in taking the oath?
I don't.
All right. Thank you very much. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide to this panel today is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and your designation at SAFSEI for the record.
Mishka Murat, Campaigns Officer at SAFSEI.
All right. Thank you. You may start with your presentation. The time is now 11:29. We will count 11:30. You've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, SAFSEI welcomes the opportunity to engage and would like to thank NERSA for the opportunity to submit comments on Eskom's revised RTP. Please confirm if you can see my presentation. Can you see my presentation? Okay. The Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute is a multi-faith organization committed to supporting faith communities in Southern Africa. Energy justice and the negative health and socioeconomic impacts of energy poverty, along with environmentally sustainable use of resources, are some of SAFSEI's key concerns. Just to briefly touch on SAFSEI's historical comments to NERSA, SAFSEI has consistently emphasized the need for a thorough review of the funding model for electricity provision in South Africa. We have also called on the relevant minister to provide a clear and actionable plan for intergovernmental collaboration to address the ongoing crisis at Eskom and the broader challenges of national electricity provision. In addition, SAFSEI has reiterated the importance of implementing policies that effectively address the needs of energy-poor communities. Finally, we urge NERSA to appeal to the relevant government agencies to take swift action in addressing energy poverty, which continues to impact millions of South Africans. Our overall comments on the RTP includes a call to NERSA to urgently petition the Electricity Minister for intergovernmental action to address the national electricity affordability and service provision, to urgently petition the relevant government agencies to address energy poverty, to retain the incline block tariff until an effective energy poverty program is implemented, to ensure that fixed charges are based on the level of service use and are not a one-size-fits-all. We also reject the proposed legacy tariff on older renewable energy independent power plants. Furthermore, to ensure that tariff restructuring does not compromise the development of private generation that supports national energy security, to engage Eskom to develop a new value-adding service that integrates private generation with its national transmission and distribution infrastructure to benefit both Eskom and a national shift to clean generation, that a national initiative by Eskom, local authorities, and civil society acknowledges customers as active participants in efficient electricity use, and to educate customers about the costs of electricity services, tariff structures, and cost-saving options to encourage behaviors that support the optimal use of electricity. SAFC's comments will follow NERSA's formats as set in the consultation paper on Eskom's retail tariff restructuring plan. Our comments largely focus on the core areas of concern for our constituency, namely energy poverty and reducing environmental impacts. On comment 1, Eskom's cost to serve, Eskom's proposed new RTP aims to improve transparency by reflecting the true cost of electricity supply. However, SAFCI is concerned that the approved revenue allocation may not accurately reflect these costs. We believe tariff restructuring must align closely with the actual cost of supply to ensure fairness and sustainability. Past MYPD tariff increases have often included inflated revenue projections, leading to contested revenue clawbacks such as the billions recently added to the MYPD 6 tariff application. On comment 2, the peak hour changes. Peak demand electricity is costly, often relying on diesel-powered open-cycle gas turbine peaking plants. SAFCI supports measures that incentivize shifting discretionary energy use to off-peak times to reduce cost and demand. We also call for an educational campaign to inform and engage customers in making the necessary behavioral changes. Comment 3 on ratio changes. SAFCI supports using price signals to encourage shifting electricity use to off-peak times, helping to reduce demand during peak periods. However, we question Eskom's proposal to lower high demand energy charges, particularly if this leads to higher fixed infrastructure costs. Transparency is key, and the user pay principle should ensure peak time charges reflect the true cost of supply. As renewable energy from wind and solar grows, it's crucial to reduce evening and morning consumption peaks where possible. A successful transition to clean energy depends on informed and active customer participation in managing energy use effectively. On comment 3, the service charges based on points of delivery, we had no comments. On comment 5, the unbundling energy users, SAFCI emphasizes that fixed costs should not reflect a one-size-fits-all approach. Eskom's RTP application highlights that tariff unbundling aims to ensure customers pay only for the costs they incur. However, fixed costs like infrastructure availability charges must also reflect the user's demand profile. For example, customers who generate their own electricity and use the grid less frequently should not pay for the same as those relying on the grid 24/7. A uniform tariff risks unfairly penalizing customers with their own generation. Instead of increasing fixed charges, Eskom should explore value-added services such as storage and transmission as alternative revenue sources. On the generation capacity cost determination, SAFCI raises concerns about the GCC process and its potential impact on customers. How can we ensure that this process doesn't mask ongoing inefficiencies or contribute to higher tariffs? We also question how NERSA will prevent the GCC from leading to overestimated sales volumes, which could unfairly increase costs for customers. Additionally, if the GCC includes the use of costly emergency peak power plants like the OCGTs, it risks shifting the financial burden onto customers rather than addressing inefficiencies within Eskom. On legacy charges to cover the legacy costs, SAFCI finds that the legacy charge on the first rounds of the REIPP projects are unacceptable. Unlike renewable energy projects, coal's true environmental costs are not reflected in electricity pricing, creating unfair comparison. Legacy RIPP plants remain vital for addressing electricity shortages while also providing carbon credit benefits. We call for intergovernmental solutions to address the cost of legacy projects and Eskom's mounting debt. On comment 8, the municipal tariff rationalization, we had no comment. Comment 9, comment on the proposal to remove the IBT. SAFCI believes that removing the IBT for home-like customers is inappropriate as most cannot afford small-scale electricity generation. We also find Eskom's survey inadequate and oversimplified, failing to capture home-like customers' views or fully explain the impact of IBT removal. Eskom and local authorities must educate customers about the true cost of electricity supply and the various tariff categories. SAFCI does not support the removing of the IBT for home-like customers until a proper subsidy structure is in place for low-income households. We again call for an urgent national action plan to ensure affordable energy services for energy-poor households. The home power unbundling. SAFCI advises caution in removing the IBT and adding fixed charges to home power tariffs. With rising Eskom electricity costs and public confusion over new charges, there's a risk that more households may go off-grid, reducing Eskom's paying customer base. The IBT incentivized efficient electricity use by offering lower costs for initial consumption, a principle still essential for sustaining resource use. Efficient electricity use is critical for a just energy transition, even if it conflicts the Eskom's profit motives. SAFC recommends a gradual introduction of new tariffs alongside improved services like smart time of use metering and low limiters. The feedback on tariff unbundling and home flex tariff. SAFC advises a gradual introduction of new tariffs that align with Eskom's ability to provide new services. For small-scale embedded generation, these services could include battery storage to help offset peak demand. Fixed charges proposed by Eskom should not be a one-size-fits-all, but should reflect the level of service use. Time of use charges for SSEG are recognized as a way to incentivize private generation, reducing peak time grid demand. In conclusion, SAFC appreciates the opportunity to comment on price policies and tariffs and recognizes the complexity of supporting Eskom with all its challenges. Tariffs are just one part of the solution, and excess tariffs will continue Eskom's and the country's downfall spiral. How to fund Eskom and provide affordable energy to the citizens who cannot afford electricity remains a major challenge that is not being addressed. The current Eskom model is not getting the urgent intergovernmental attention it needs. These comments are made with the intention of supporting an affordable, reliable, clean energy future for all. Thank you.
Chairperson, you may be muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Mishka. Thank you for your presentation. From SAFC, I would like to check if the members have any questions of clarity from the presentation. By show of hands, members, if you have any questions. Okay, it seems the presentation was clear. The members don't have questions. I would like to thank SAFC for the presentation, and we'll take all of the issues that you presented into consideration. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we're now moving on to the next presentation. The presentation is from the member of the public. I've got the name of Liziwe McDade. If you can kindly activate your camera.
Thanks, Ms. Maseti. I'm actually representing the Green Connection. I think there was a little bit of a hiccup there, but myself and the next speaker are sort of doing one presentation, so we should save you time.
Okay.
And if once I've taken the oath, I'll just do a short presentation, then hand over to Vuyiseka. I don't know if you would like both of us to do the oath together or one at a time.
Yes, we will do them together so that we move on. May you raise your right hand?
I can do that. Can you see me?
Yes, I can. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you are going to give to this panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and your designation at Green Connection.
Liziwe McDade, Strategic Lead at the Green Connection.
All right. Thank you very much. May we then go to Vuyiseka? Vuyiseka, may you activate the camera? May we have Vuyiseka?
She was experiencing. Sorry.
Okay, may we start with you? May we start with you then with the presentation, please, and then when it is her time to present, we will then conduct the oath at that stage. You may go ahead with yours. Thanks.
I just have to try and figure out, to see how I choose the presentation. What are you seeing at the moment?
We're seeing conclusion, but we see something coming from you.
Oh, okay, all right. I just need to get
conclusion.
The right, not conclusion.
All right.
Okay, let me just get this right.
But you may start whenever you found the right page to start.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just give me a 1 second. I don't know what happened to my cursor. Let me just. Okay, that should work. All right, have you got it? Okay, very quickly. Thanks very much for this opportunity. Just as I know Nursa kind of knows who we are, but just to. Okay, that's not working. All right, I'll do it like this. Okay, so who we are. Are you seeing that? Sorry, Ms. Masetti, I'm struggling a little bit technically here. Not coming through clearly. Which slide are you seeing?
We do see your first slide, Ms. McDane, which says who we are. Apologies, maybe that's. Yes, we do see it, but you can put it on slide mode. Thanks.
I've tried to, and then it doesn't want to. Let me just stop sharing and reshare. I think I picked the wrong screen. Apologies. It's supposed to make your lives shorter. Okay. That's. Yeah. Okay.
Ms. McDade, are you winning?
I'm hoping to. Just it keeps. I can't choose another screen somehow on this. So apologies. Hoping I can find the slideshow screen. Okay. To make it quick, I'm just gonna share like this, and that's
okay.
So I'll just click each different slide. So that's the who we are. Can you see this?
Yes, please, Masetti. Can Dingwanyana take us? I would like to stand down the matter so that we may have an opportunity to check the email that the parties referred to, of which email Basitsana could not confirm. May I request Dingwanyana to take? Colleagues, it seems we are struggling with screen connection. Shall we rather move on to the next presenter and then come back? Ms. McDade, I think we spent more than 5 minutes now.
Yeah.
Shall we come back to you when you are sorted?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to, yes, I'm quite comfortable with that. Just to let you know that I did send the PowerPoint to Patience, so maybe she can share it from her side when you come back to us.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for that indulgence. We would like to then move on to the next presenter. The next presenter is City Power, and we've got the name of Frank Hinder. City Power.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson.
Okay, good morning. May you please activate your camera?
I did on my side, ma'am. I'm not sure why it's not showing.
Dark. It's dark. Colleagues, are you also experiencing the same thing? It's dark from my side. Are you seeing anything, colleagues, so that I can then proceed? But from my side, it is dark. I wouldn't want to waste time of the.
Yes, Chairperson, I can see the City Power
if the
presentation. Thank you.
From my
Not just
side,
the presentation.
Chair,
Oh, yeah, then we can see.
The first slide.
No, the person, I wanted the person for oath to conduct oath first. All right, may you please raise your right hand, Mr. Hinda?
I did, ma'am.
May you please raise your right hand so that we can see the right hand?
I did raise it, ma'am. My camera is on, but I'm not.
Oh. Okay, all right, let's assume that you have raised the hand as you confirmed. Yes, now it's much better. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to give to this panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and your designation at City Power.
Frank Hinda, Senior Manager, Pricing and Tariffs at City Power.
All right, you may start with your presentation. The time is now 11:49. However, we'll start counting from 11:50. You may continue with your presentation.
Thank you, Chairperson. In doing my presentation, I will focus on the following areas. A brief introduction on the proposed change in the time of use, proposed change in the rates, and the proposed changes in the service charge by POD. I will refer to the legacy charges and the generation capacity charges, and a proposed way forward in terms of the cost of supply study. In terms of Chairperson, we do appreciate that the proposed retail tariff plan is generally meant to be an alignment of revenue and tariff revenue structures and revenue levels to the cost structure and cost levels. So in principle, we are in support of Eskom doing retail tariff plans and it to be implemented at the appropriate time. However, we have a concern about the timing of the proposed introduction because it would not inspire greater price certainty and as well as a smooth price path. What do we mean about the uncertainty? Right now, NERSA is yet to decide on the increase that will be applicable for the next MYPD6 cycle. While the retail plan is not meant to result in tariff increases, the structural changes will result in increases for certain customer categories. We are therefore not able to assess the overall impact because the jury is still out in terms of what the baseline increase would be. We also know that at NERSA, the tariff increases historically have always been front-loaded. For example, in the last cycle, the first year was 18% and the second year about 12.72%. Eskom has now applied for 3 years, 36%, 11 and 9. Which then implies that if the proposed structural changes are also to take effect in the first year, all of them, that would make the situation worse depending on what NERSA approves. So ideally, things like this retail tariff plan should be implemented towards the end, where the baseline increase is generally lower. Otherwise, it is our general view that looking at what the Eskom has submitted, it may need more time to provide supporting calculations and providing relevant evidence and facts and maybe ready for implementation towards the end of MYPD6 rather than at the beginning. In terms of the proposed changes to the time of use times, as indicated by Eskom themselves, They are wanting to change mainly from during both winter and summer. We have got 3 hours peak in the they have got 3 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. They would want to change that the other way around, so it's 3 hours in the evening and 2 hours in the morning. They're also proposing to introduce 2 additional hours of standard times on Sundays. However, it looks like the application doesn't provide sufficient system load profile data to prove that there is a shift in the shape of the load profile from morning to evening. The proposed change seems to suggest that the evening peak is longer compared to the morning peak. The evening peak, however, may well be higher, but it's not necessarily longer compared to the morning peak. So the proposal is suggesting that the evening peak is the shoulders have broadened over time. But if you look at historic data that Eskom has submitted as part of the application, it does not seem to suggest that. And this picture may well be illustrate that on the left, we're looking at the summer. Yes, it's true, the evening peak is high, but it's steeper, meaning it happens over a shorter period of time. Whereas, in fact, the morning peak is the one that, even though it's lower, it is broader, therefore, it probably requires more hours. So it is critical that Eskom provides the supporting evidence to avoid any misalignment of the peaking period against the applicable peaking charges, because if they are not aligned, it could then be detrimental to Eskom and its customers. The same assessment with them in terms of the proposed time of use changes. Eskom assessment of the current peak and off-peak ratio is based on WEBs. What is submitted as part of the application is WEBs. Now, but we don't implement WEBs, we implement the proposal is that municipalities will implement what will be called the mini flags. And that mini flags will have got 3 basic tariff levels, and which each one will differ. The one for the biggest customers and the moderate sized customers, and then the lower voltage supply customers. Now, what we have seen is that the proposed, especially for the middle category, the 2 lower categories, the proposed changes will result in a 9% increase in the summer tariff. Now, that's in addition to whatever NERSA would allow Eskom. And Eskom has applied for 38. And if that 38 is granted, this 9% increase will be in addition to that. Eskom is also able to revise the structural changes implementation timing and implementation period. There's no need for, the cost of supplies is meant to be implemented over 5 years. There's no need for Eskom to implement all the changes in 1 year. That 9% grant increase can be staggered over the cost of supply time frame, which is 5 years, rather than causing a shock in the first year and so on. On the POD charges, now City Power has got 48 points of delivery, some of which are at very low voltage and therefore at high cost. We have previously, at a number of occasions, requested Eskom to consolidate the PODs into 5 or 6 that will be supplied at transmission voltage level. So if the number of PODs are concerned, we are willing for them to be consolidated. However, the current charge is rand per day per account. Eskom is proposing to City Power has got 9 accounts, and therefore it's getting charged about R1 million a month or 12 million rand a year in terms of service charges. The proposed service charge, while the rate will reduce from 400 rand to about 180, it will, because we have got a large number of ports, it will increase to 1.3 million rand a month. And that's a 29%, 30% increase on top of what NERSA is going to allow Eskom for the next financial year. On the legacy charges, even I was listening carefully when Eskom was presenting. It sounds like if they were saying something else from what is in the report or in the submission. But how the legacy charges are defined is that there is a paragraph, a sentence, for example, if I can just quote it, it says these prices are higher than the current generation cost. So, and those prices we are referring to the government renewable program. Eskom seems to suggest that the legacy costs are associated with the government renewable program. However, the costs associated with the renewable program have always been part of the allowed cost that constitute allowed revenue. Eskom has over the years, for various reasons, always underspent on the allowed cost for procurement of renewable energy. And the fact that the price per unit for renewable energy is higher than the unit cost of electricity generated from nuclear, coal, and other primary sources does not constitute a cross-subsidization in itself, because it is fully provided for. What that means is that whatever Eskom gets allowed as an average increase in the year, it includes the cost of renewable energies in full, and sometimes even more, because Eskom doesn't realize it. So this notion that there is a legacy cost simply does not add up. On top of that, for example, in the MYPD6 application, there is no request for legacy costs. So it's a fallacy that Eskom is claiming that there is a legacy cost, that the one is subsidizing the other. It's not true, because the price that it's been allowed, it's covering all the costs, all Eskom allowed cost. On the generation capacity charge, the principle of unbundling the cost may well be, it's agreed to, and it's in line with the cost of supply principles. However, the proposed generation charge appears to be introduced at the expense of the network capacity charge. So in other words, instead of taking the energy charge and splitting it into two components, one based on the capacity and the one based on energy, Eskom appears it has reduced the energy charge somehow, but it's not adequate, because it is actually reducing the transmission network charge from 19 rand a kVA to about 14 rand a kVA by the introduction of the network capacity charge. So while the principle is supported, Eskom seems to do a misallocation and misrepresentation, misalignment of cost to revenue as far as this is concerned. Now, this is even more apparent, because when one looks at the table on the left, represents what Eskom has applied for the first year. Maybe just to emphasize, which included 98 billion for transmission. Obviously, in that number, it's about 80 billion that relates to IPPs and imports. If you take that out, the basic cost, the basic revenue requirement it's applied for is 21 billion. On the right-hand side is an extract from the cost of supply study, or cost to serve study, which suggests that the total cost, according to this table 24, is about 7.2 billion, which then means that if these tables are comparable, that the transmission cost is increasing from 7 to about 21 billion. So therefore, reducing the basic the tariff for transmission from 19 to 14 may then not be in line with what Eskom has applied for, and may therefore cause further confusion. So therefore, we are of the view that Eskom should be allowed more time to provide proof for the shift in the load profile to warrant changes in time of use. Eskom should have more time to understand that they have asked for a change on a Sunday. They must be able to clarify, proof that is the change. But more importantly, that will result in additional revenue to Eskom. Eskom then has to get time to clarify how it will compensate the customer somewhere else, where now that it will be recovering additional revenue there, it has to compensate somewhere else, but it doesn't result in additional increase in the overall. The proposed time of use rates require greater assessment. First of all, to avoid any price shocks, but also to make sure that the revenues are split correctly, or the changes in the tariff structure result in correct splitting of revenues, that it doesn't result in almost 10% increase in the rates before any consideration of the new increase. Legacy charges to be considered and be allowed for equitable unbundling of the generation tariff. Legacy charge if it relates up to IPP cost, then it should be done correctly so that it then is also been allocated to transmission rather than to generation in line with the MYPT application. Tariff restructuring should ideally not be implemented at the beginning of the tariff cycle to provide greater price certainty, but also to accommodate it if the MYPD 6, for example, comes with the lowest increase for the last year. That would be the ideal time to implement things like tariff restructuring to make sure that it doesn't result in additional shocks to the price. That's the summary in addition to what I've already submitted, Chairperson. I submit.
Thank you very much to the City Power. May I check if the members have any questions of clarity from City Power? A show of hands, members, if you have questions from for City Power. Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenter. I just have one point of clarity for City Power in relation to the service charges. I think Eskom indicated that the impact is that there will be those that, or rather customers that experiences a reduction in tariff and some will go up, and that 70% of municipalities will be having a saving. I just want to check from City Power because I may have missed the details on the slide where the presenter said that there will be an increase of 29%. I just want the presenter to just clarify that for me, the impact of the change in service charges to City Power in particular, because he highlighted some of the figures. I may have missed the exact impact in terms of these changes to them. Thank you, Chair.
Chair,
Thank you. There's a delay from my side, members. I would like to now go to Mr. Pukula. Mr. Pukula.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to clarify with Frank, the way I understood Eskom's legacy charge thing, it was really a reallocation of the costs rather than an introduction of a new charge. Is that his understanding? Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Hinda. Mr. Hinda.
Yes, Chairperson, sorry, I was just trying to get away from the presentation. On the first question, Chairperson, just to clarify, yes, because the charge is going to be rent per day per POD, point of delivery. So yes, in the 48 intakes that we have, most of them will be reduced. But there is one account where we have got 26 PODs linked to that account, and that one is increasing by 236%, which is because it has got 26 PODs linked to it. The rest are all essentially reducing, but because of that impact, the overall service charge for the per month was about R1 million. Based on current tariffs per month, it will increase to 1.3 million, and that's a 30% increase. That's what we are saying. So we are unfortunately one of those municipalities, municipal entities that will be affected negatively by this. And that 29% is in addition to what NERSA is going to allow Eskom as part of MYPD determination. And we had a solution for that is they say reduce the PODs by consolidating them. And that way Eskom wouldn't have so many PODs to administer. On the question about the legacy charge, that's why I'm saying, Chairperson, if one reads the submission for the retail tariff plan, there's a sentence that says these prices are often higher, referring to the legacy, to the renewable energy charges compared to other generation cost, compared to Eskom's generation cost. So the way I understand it, it is a completely new charge that they are introducing. It's a but when Eskom was presenting this morning, it sounded like they are referring to the. It sounded like they are referring to this cost, the IBP 66 billion that they have applied for. But if you look at the submission, they are referring to the fact that the unit price for IPP for purchases from IPPs is say 6 rand plus, or it is high, 3 rand plus, whereas the unit cost of nuclear and coal is much lower. So therefore, they are saying the coal is subsidizing IPPs. Therefore, there is a need for this subsidy. So the way I understand the Chairperson is that it's a completely new charge, at least from what is on paper. But that's different from what they presented this morning. But what is on paper is what NERSA has to consider at the end of the day. I submit, Chairperson.
Members, any follow-up questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. If there's none, members, we now move on to the next presenter. We're going back. Thank you to City Power and thank you to Mr. Hinda. We're now taking the presentation from Green Connection. We've got the names of Liswe McDade. Liswe, I'm not going to go through the oath again. It still stands. If Wiseka is sorted now, we can do the oath, but let me not waste any time. I would like you to start with your presentation, then we'll do the oath for Wiseka at the time when she's ready.
Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, I see the slide who we are.
Yeah, so we are NGO and we try and help with good governance, which is part of the reason that we are here. And so I will give a short input and then I will hand over to Wiseka, who works with our outreach team on the ground, who would like to relay to NERSA some of the sort of day-to-day struggles that people have that could impact on your decision-making with these tariffs. Okay, let's see if we can. Right. Moving. Sorry, just checking this. The PowerPoint working. So just to say, in terms of process, we were upset at the end of the last year when we suddenly found we were being asked to do public hearings in what is the festive season, and obviously people have a lot on their plate, and we didn't think this was acceptable. But so we really want to appreciate the fact that NERSA did change and delay the hearings. So our understanding that you're committed to public participation, you did delay, we appreciate that, but we would also like to say, please don't do that again. It caused quite a bit of stress with people wanting to participate. I'm just putting this up because Eskom presented about how the tariff structures are supposed to be revenue neutral, but in fact, just to highlight a couple of things, is they spoke to the retail, the per day costs, supposedly going down, but they also talk about retail costs changing on a year by year. So for us, in our detailed submission, we've put this through, but part of our concern is that this restructuring is potentially going to lead to higher electricity prices, even though they claim it's revenue neutral, because things will shift over time. Just in terms of the reduced fixed component, it says there to allow for a phased introduction. So this does not seem like it's going to necessarily stay this way. And then I think many of the other speakers have also spoken to how, when you look at the detail, some things are not really going to be reducing in costs. And we have a serious problem with the idea that the renewable energy cost is a legacy cost, but Medupe and Kusile cost overruns are somehow just part of the norm. So we believe that Eskom is not playing fair. So, as I said, very short submission, but our real concern is over the broader system, and we believe NERSA needs to maybe take the lead, respond to the minister, but we are constantly reacting to Eskom's ideas. And what we need is a much more systematic overview, possibly electricity pricing policy and a tariff system, which is going to cover the country. And the country is no longer Eskom when it comes to electricity provision. There's many players out there, some of who presented today, and we need a stakeholder process where this can be unpacked. Because as the consumers, we sit on the ground and just respond to what Eskom's saying. But there are many other issues that need to be put forward. The unbundling of Eskom also raises a whole lot of other issues, the wheeling tariffs, the cost of the transmission, who's going to invest, how, what to do with the generation costs. There's many costs in generation that are excluded. The health costs, Eskom's constant attempts to not meet its emission targets has costs to society. The climate change implications of not moving away fast enough from fossil fuels in our generation component. So these, we think, are critical issues that are broader than just this tariff application, although we did put some comments in writing. And then the other issue about nothing changing for indigent. But indigent is a classification which often means that poorer people have to go and apply and be registered as poor, which has been raised many times about as being not really a dignified way to approach life, which means that there will be a whole lot of people who don't use very much electricity, but will still be into that sector where they are paying a fixed cost. And also what we see is municipalities are bringing in this fixed cost now. And so once again, what you're ending up with is if you want to go and buy electricity, you basically have to pay a whole lot of money before you even get to buy the electricity. You could end, it's like being in a bread shop that you go and buy bread and then you don't actually get to buy any bread because you have to pay so much to get into the shop that by the time you get to pay the bread, you can only afford a slice. So we think the way that tariffs are structured needs to be re-looked at. I mean, not saying that people shouldn't pay for all the components, but the way it's structured at the moment, in our view, is that it's structured towards Eskom getting its money rather than providing an energy or electricity service that will drive economic development, which is what we believe it should be for all of us at household, business, etc. So that's our concern. The other issue is energy efficient has never been in Eskom's interests, apart when it doesn't have any power, because its aim in life is to sell more electricity. So the idea of time of use tariffs and other mechanisms should be about smoothing a demand curve or driving customer behavior. So it should be applied at the household level as well. But we also need to take into account things like different socioeconomic classes. If you're working and you travel home, it takes you an hour to get home. It means your peak demand in your own house in terms of cooking, etc., might not coincide with peak use in terms of what Eskom has determined. So I think there's a lot more that needs to be unpacked there. And yeah, so we really want to appeal to NERSA that while we understand you're obligated to deal with these Eskom applications, we would really encourage that rather than having to respond each time and react and take time to read all these hundreds of pages, it would be much better if we could start with, we're unbundling, we need a new electricity tariff approach, we need to make it fair, we understand that all of the players need to cover their costs, but if it's not affordable, I'm not sure what they are going to do in terms of their costs. And what we've seen Eskom do in the past is simply go to government to bail them out. So we would really appreciate it if we can, as a country, relook at how tariffs should be structured. And we would look to NERSA to provide some leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McDade, for your submissions. And we take note of the appeals to NERSA to act in a proactive manner and take the lead in some of these changes in a way that would work for the economy and work for the consumers, but also balancing the interest of the providers of electricity and power or energy. All right, thank you very much for the presentation. I am not sure if Vuyiseka is now available.
She should be.
Yes, ma'am, I'm available.
Right. All right, may you please activate your camera?
I did. Ma'am?
Yes, I can see you. All right, may you raise your right hand? Okay, do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to give to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
Ma'am.
Okay, please state your name and your designation at a Green Connection for the record.
Igama lam ndinguVuyiseka Mani. Ndiphangela kwa Green Connection. Ndingu-Legacy Mentor Officer under Outreach.
Okay, thank you very much. You may start with your presentation.
Okay. Okokuqala mna as umuntu osebenza ngabahlali sifumana ingxaki xa incwadi ezawuthi iye ebahlalini icacise ngemigomo yezi tariffs zika Eskom noNERSA ingu-152 pages. Because one, thina sisebenza ngabantu most yabo ayingobantu abafundileyo ncam, noba bafundile but abakwazi ukufunda u-152 pages bawugqibe bakwazi ukuva uba umongo wayo uthini. Okwesibini, njengokuba kukho le nto yezi tariffs zitshintshwayo, kuthwani ngabantu abahlala kwi-informal settlement abangabhatali imbane but basebenzisa umbane as if they bayawubhatala, like basebenzisa like njengomntu wonke obhatalayo but babe bengawubhatali laa nto yezinyokanyoka. And okwesibini, ithini mhlawumbi indlela eniza kwenza ngayo for abantu abatswebe umbane, nabo bayawusebenzisa but abawubhatali, ngoba thina siluluntu sibona izoba unfair kubantu ababhatala umbane for what they are using it for, kube kukho abantu abawusebenzisayo bengawubhatali. Okokugqibela, xa kutshintshwe ezi tariffs ne-peak time and off peak, ngaba sithi mabathini abantwana ababhala ii-exams, ngoba masikhumbule into yokuba ngaba xa abantwana bebhala ii-exams baye abanye mhlawumbi kusiswe oko kufundwa, omnye ubhala ngo-2 omnye ubhala ngo-5 omnye ubhala ngo-4 okanye babhala kusasa amaxesha atshintshana, kuthwani ngabo ngoba thina singabahlali sibona into yokuba ngaba izoba unfair for thina yonke le nto yezi tariffs zitshintshwayo. And okokugqibela, kwa ukuba like ngoku besenza ubhaliso uba sikwazi ukuzothetha apha, kufuneke uthumele i-email, ufumane i-email back from kutata uWalter, uhambe uyoprinta iform uyifilishe. As a result, ispeaker besuppose sithethe emva kwam asikwazi ngoba sisezilalini and kunengxaki yenetwork, uyabo. So ngaske mhlawumbi unesa azame indlela eziphucukileyo zokufikelela ncakasane ebantwini ngaphandle kwezinto ze-internet like Zoom or Teams, uyabo, izinto nje ezizawuba lula ukuba bakwazi abantu ukufumana ulwazi and bakwazi ufikelela kwi-public hearings ezifana nezi, kuba ngoku kukho i-community yase-Port St Johns evaleleke ngaphandle ekuba izobeka uluvo lwayo apha kuba benengxaki yenetwork behlala ezilalini. Enkosi mama.
Thank you, Ms. Mani, for your presentation. Members, any questions from your side for green energy for this part of the presentation, Ms. Mani's presentation? A show of hands, members, if you do have any question. If none, thank you, Ms. Fuiseka Mani. We appreciate your input in this matter. We are now moving on to the next presentation from Coastal Links. We've got the name of Ntsindi Nongavu.
Excuse me, Mama Maseti. Mr. Nongavu, ile community leader.
You may mute yourself, Ms. Mani.
No, ma'am, trying to.
Patience, can you assist us?
Thank you, Chair. The next presenter is part of the same group that just presented now.
Chairperson, if I may, there's an email that has been sent by Ms. Mani, who has just presented now, explaining about the next presenter. Maybe if you can allow her to give you that explanation, Chairperson. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I was not aware if patients can monitor the emails and indicate to the members so that we know, because I wasn't checking the emails. I wanted to see if the next presenter is available. Ms. Mani?
Yes, ma'am.
The email indicates that the presenter has network problems.
The presenter has?
Network issues, connection problems.
Can you get in touch with the presenter and give us something firm here so that we can, we know as the panel how we are going to proceed? Whether we wait for 2 minutes to give the presenter an opportunity to connect or not, please. Ms. Mani?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Mani?
Yes, ma'am. One, utata Nongavu akayo ngalenye yethu yena uregisterishele uCoastal Links, not the Green Connection. Okwesibini, i-email ibhalwe ndim kuba ndifonelwa mna ekuthiwa besithi ababa nengxaki ye-network. Ndabacela ke into yokuba ngaba ndicela babhale i-email bayithumele kweza email address banazo, like bathethe uluvo lwabo, because okubathi oku kwakusasa bezama ungena abakwazi. Enkosi.
All right, thank you very much. We will wait. Also, thanks for that information. We'll wait for Ms. Maswanganyi to update us, and then we'll decide, members. For now, members, I would like to stand down the hearing for 5 minutes so that we can allow Ms. Masongani to get in touch with Mr. Nongavu so that we can decide whether or not we give them the opportunity to present before we go back to Eskom for their closing remarks. The matter is now stand down for 5 minutes. Thank you. Members, 5 minutes is up. I wouldn't want to delay the matter, the hearing any further. I just want to check if Patience, if you can update the members.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the next presenter still has connection problems, and he says he will share his presentation.
Patience, may you please update the members?
Chair.
Please go ahead.
Yes, Chair. The next presenter indicated that he still has connection problems, so he will share his presentation by email when he gets a chance. So if we can, yes.
If we can?
Remove him from the list of presenters.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Members, we are now resuming the hearing after a short adjournment to allow the next presenter from Insindiso, Mr. No Ngavu, to connect so that he can deliver his presentation. We have been advised that he will still not be able to connect, and therefore he will share his views that are contained in the presentation with NERSA by email. At this point in time, we would like then to go to Eskom, being the applicant, to give us or to make their closing remarks. Eskom, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Eskom really appreciates the opportunity again, and we appreciate the inputs. I think we have received valuable inputs from the stakeholder engagements that will take into consideration as we evolve tariffs into the future. Chair, if you allow me, I just want to project one slide which is to reiterate some of the points that were raised by the various stakeholders and what Eskom is asking for in this application. I would like, Chair, to go to the point raised by the various stakeholders about the delayed implementation of proposing for a delayed implementation of these proposals. We do accept that, Chair, but I think what we need to highlight is that we initially proposed to unbundle these tariffs in 2020, and that was before even the start of the Eskom unbundling, because we wanted to prepare for the Eskom unbundling as well as the escalation of self-generation and wheeling. So, Chair, further delays in restructuring of these tariffs will further exacerbate the incorrect signals that exist in the system. Currently, we have a situation that customers with self-generation, customers that are willing through the Eskom grid, they receive the grid backup without having to pay for the associated standby costs. And in this plan, what we are saying is that let's start to introduce the signal for standby costs. And failure to recover these costs, we know that it just means that we are going to see now increased tariffs for everybody, including the indigent, and this will result in worsening the energy poverty, and that is a consequence that we do not want. So, Chair, I just want to also clarify that from some of the inputs provided by the various stakeholders, we want to reiterate that the cost of supply that we submitted, the CTS study, is not inaccurate. It is based on the approved NERSA costs. The legacy costs, I think our colleagues indicated that we sense that there was maybe a confusion around that. Probably it is due to a naming convention, but we also want to reiterate that this legacy charge, it's not a new charge. It exists in the current time of use charges, but it is a cost associated with the additional costs of renewable energy. And what we are merely doing is to unbundle those costs and charging it differently to ensure that all the customer pays for that separately. Then coming to just the last 2 points on the service charges, I think the impacts that were shown by the colleagues that presented actually supports exactly the motivation why we want to, or we propose to charge the service charge per port, because it means that that one particular account that has got more than 20 ports, it's now being unfairly subsidized by the other customers, and we want to remove that unfair subsidies. However, Chair, I just want to reiterate again that we cannot be looking at the service charge impact in isolation. So it might be that the service charge impact is 29% for the municipality, but let us look at the impact on the overall municipality for the overall changes that we are proposing. And according to our data, as I've indicated, most of the municipalities are going to be benefiting. And it would be interesting also to see, because we have provided the tariff comparison tools to our customers available on our website, and it would be interesting to see what the overall impact is and not just the service charge impact. I think lastly, Chair, we just want to thank the regulator members. We want to thank the presenters. It is valuable inputs that we have also taken note of. And what we are asking is, this is a first step. We need to start somewhere, and then we evolve the tariffs towards sustainable electricity tariffs. And lastly, Chair, we will also be sending the evidence as requested by some of the presenters within 7 days, especially around the time of use profiles and everything that we have noted from the presenters. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Eskom, for the closing remarks. We appreciate that, and we also look forward to receiving the further information that was requested, so that we can provide further clarity. Or maybe before I close, let me give Mr. Pukula the opportunity. He may have a question of clarity. Mr. Pukula.
Thank you, Chair. It's not really a question of clarity. I would want us to have a feel as a regulator before we make the decision of the additional amount that's going to come to Eskom just for the service charge or the admin charge, because in that really there is no additional work they are going to do. If it's 300,000 for City Power, I suspect it would be a few more millions for the others. I think we need to have a feel of how much it is and whether it is after Eskom receiving it, they've correctly distributed it on the other charges that they'd indicated. Thank you, Chair. I know there's a slide that was shown, but for me, it didn't show the impact. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. When we request that Eskom at least provide us with that information in the next 7 days, will that be fine, Mr. Pukula and the colleagues? Thumbs up if you are satisfied with that.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Eskom, if you can kindly do that exercise and also include it in the information that you're going to submit to the regulator in the next 7 days. Having said that,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that undertaking that you are making. Colleagues, we now have come to the end of this hearing, and the energy regulator will thoroughly consider all of the written submissions that were made, including the oral representations that were made today and the views of the various stakeholders. And the matter will serve at the electricity subcommittee at the time when the committee is ready to hear this matter, and stakeholders will be informed as usual through the notice of the meetings of the subcommittee. And those meetings are open to the public. At this point in time, we would like to appreciate the time that you have taken to attend this hearing and also availing yourselves for the presentations. And would like to thank all the observers that were connected to the platform to observe the proceedings. I would like to thank the members of the Energy Regulator. Thank you for your time. The hearing is adjourned. Have a fruitful afternoon further. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Chairperson.